Life has a way of throwing curveballs when we least expect them. One day, everything seems fine. Your job is secure, your health is stable, and your relationships are thriving. The next, you find yourself standing in the wreckage of what was once your normal life. Maybe it's a sudden layoff, a devastating health diagnosis, or the loss of someone you love. In moments like these, it's easy to feel like the world is against you, like you're being tested beyond what you can handle. But what if I told you that these moments, the ones that feel like they're breaking you, could actually be the key to building something stronger, something unshakable? Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most renowned Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." These words might sound simple, but they carry a profound truth. While we can't always control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. Stoicism isn't about pretending that pain doesn't exist or numbing ourselves to life's hardships. It's about facing adversity head-on and mastering the art of perspective. It's about realizing that even in the darkest moments, we have the power to choose how we see, think, and act. In this video, we'll explore how Stoics handle life when everything goes wrong. We'll dive into key principles like cognitive reframing, how to shift your mindset to see challenges as opportunities for growth. We'll talk about focusing on what's within your control rather than wasting energy on what isn't. And we'll examine how to cultivate resilience so you can bounce back stronger no matter what life throws your way. But here's the question that will guide us through it all. What if the worst moments of your life could become your greatest teachers? By the end of this video, you'll not only understand the Stoic approach to adversity, you'll have practical tools to apply it in your own life. So let's begin. The first step to handling life's chaos is understanding what you can actually change. Stoicism teaches us that not everything is within our power, and that's okay. It's about recognizing the difference between what we control and what we don't, a principle known as the Dichotomy of Control. Think of it like this: external events like the weather or how others treat us are outside our influence. But our thoughts, emotions, and actions, those are ours to shape. This idea isn't just philosophical, it's deeply practical. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's great thinkers, put it simply: some things are within our power while others are not. He urged us to focus on what's ours to change our own choices and attitudes and let go of the rest. It sounds straightforward, but in practice, it's a game changer. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, feeling frustrated because you're late. The traffic is outside your control, but how you respond to it, that's entirely up to you. You can let anger take over, or you can use the time to listen to a podcast, reflect, or even practice gratitude for the moment of pause. This principle applies to bigger challenges too. Take a cancelled flight, for example. You can't control the airline's decisions, but you can control how you handle the situation, whether you spend the time complaining or use it as an opportunity to catch up on work or connect with someone nearby. The key is shifting your focus from what's happening to you to what you can do about it. So, here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to list 3 things you can control right now and 3 things you can't. Maybe you can't control a difficult conversation at work, but you can control how you prepare for it. Maybe you can't change the past, but you can decide how you move forward. By making this distinction, you're already taking a step toward greater resilience and peace. It's not about ignoring the chaos of life, it's about navigating it with clarity and purpose. What if every obstacle was a chance to become stronger? This is the core of the Stoic approach to life's challenges. Instead of seeing difficulties as setbacks, the Stoics viewed them as opportunities, training grounds for building resilience, wisdom, and virtue. It's a mindset shift that transforms how we experience hardship, turning what feels like a burden into a lesson. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. What he's saying is that adversity isn't just something to endure, it's something to embrace. It's in the struggle that we discover our true character and develop the strength to face whatever comes next. Think about it, when everything goes smoothly, we rarely grow. It's the challenges that push us to adapt, to think creatively, and to dig deeper into our own potential. Take Marcus Aurelius, for example. As the Roman emperor, he faced unimaginable trials, wars, political turmoil, even a devastating plague. Yet he didn't see these as reasons to despair. Instead, he used them as opportunities to practice Stoic principles. His writings in Meditations reveal a man who constantly reframed his struggles as chances to lead with integrity, courage, and compassion. He didn't just survive those hardships, he grew through them, leaving behind a legacy of wisdom that still inspires us today. So, what does this mean for you? Start by looking at the challenges in your own life. Maybe it's a difficult project at work, a strained relationship, or even a personal setback. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What can I learn from this?" or "How can this make me stronger?" By shifting your perspective, you're not just enduring the obstacle, you're using it as a stepping stone to grow. Reframing isn't about pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about recognizing that even in the midst of struggle, there's an opportunity to build something meaningful. It's about finding the silver lining, not because the clouds aren't there, but because you know the sun is still shining behind them. So, the next time life throws you a curveball, remember, this isn't just a problem, it's a chance to become the best version of yourself. Stoics don't just accept fate, they love it. This might sound radical, even counterintuitive, but it's at the heart of a powerful Stoic principle called Amor Fati, or the love of fate. Instead of merely tolerating what life throws at us, Amor Fati challenges us to embrace it fully, every setback, every challenge, every unexpected twist. It's not about blind optimism or pretending everything is perfect. It's about finding meaning even in the hardest moments and recognizing that every experience, good or bad, shapes who we are. The Stoics believed that life's events are neither inherently good nor bad, it's our judgment of them that gives them meaning. When something difficult happens, we have a choice. We can fight against it, resist it, and let it consume us, or we can accept it as part of our journey and ask, "What can I learn from this? How can this make me stronger?" This is where Amor Fati comes in. It's not about denying pain or pretending suffering doesn't exist. It's about shifting our perspective to see every experience as an opportunity for growth. As Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Stoic philosophy, once said, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." Consider the story of Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. In the depths of unimaginable suffering, Frankl chose to find meaning in his pain. He later wrote in his book Man's Search for Meaning that even in the most brutal circumstances, we have the power to choose our attitude. That's Amor Fati in action, finding purpose in the midst of suffering and using it to fuel resilience and growth. It's not easy, but it's transformative. So how can we practice Amor Fati in our own lives? Start by reflecting on something you've been resisting. A difficult situation, a personal challenge, or even a mistake you can't stop replaying in your mind. Instead of pushing it away, ask yourself, what if I embraced this? What if I saw it as a teacher, not an enemy? Take a moment to write down one thing you've struggled to accept and how you might begin to reframe it. This small act of reflection can be the first step toward loving your fate, not just enduring it. When everything goes wrong, our minds often race to the past or future. We replay mistakes, dwell on what could have been, or worry endlessly about what might happen next. But here's the thing, the past is gone and the future is uncertain. The only moment we truly have is right now. This is where Stoicism offers a powerful tool, the practice of presence. The Stoics believed that much of our suffering comes from living anywhere but the present moment. By anchoring ourselves in the here and now, we can face challenges with clarity and calm. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, put it simply, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. What he's saying is profound. We can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we respond. And that begins by focusing on the present. When we're fully present, we're less likely to be overwhelmed by regret or anxiety. We're better equipped to handle whatever life throws our way. So how do we cultivate this sense of presence? It starts with small, intentional practices. Journaling, for example, can be a powerful way to ground yourself. Take a few minutes each day to reflect on your thoughts and feelings. Write down what's happening in the moment without judgment. This simple act helps you step out of the chaos of your mind and into the present. Meditation is another tool the Stoics would likely approve of. Even just 5 minutes of focused breathing can bring your attention back to the here and now. Here's a challenge for you. Spend 5 minutes today fully present. Put away your phone, close your laptop, and just be. Notice the sounds around you, the feeling of your breath, the texture of the air. It might feel strange at first, but that's okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's practice. Over time, these moments of presence can become a refuge, a place where you can find peace even when everything else feels out of control. The present moment, after all, is the only one we can truly shape. What if your toughest moments could make you more virtuous? That's the question Stoics ask themselves when life takes a turn for the worse. In their view, adversity isn't just a challenge to endure. It's an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more aligned with the virtues that define a good life. For Stoics, virtues like courage, wisdom, justice, and self-discipline aren't abstract ideals. They're practical tools that guide us through chaos and help us build resilience. When everything goes wrong, these virtues become your moral compass, pointing you toward actions that not only help you survive but thrive. Take courage, for example. Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Courage isn't about ignoring fear, it's about moving forward despite it. It's the ability to face uncertainty, pain, or loss with clarity and determination. When you act with courage, you're not just surviving adversity, you're transforming it into a moment of growth. Think about someone like Marcus Aurelius, who led the Roman Empire through war and plague. He didn't just endure these crises, he used them as opportunities to practice patience, fairness, and resilience. His actions weren't driven by panic or despair, but by a commitment to virtue. But virtues aren't just for emperors or historical figures. They're for all of us in the everyday challenges we face. Imagine someone who loses their job unexpectedly. Instead of giving in to fear or bitterness, they choose to act with wisdom, assessing their options, learning new skills, and staying focused on what they can control. Or picture a parent raising a child with a serious illness. They might feel overwhelmed, but through self-discipline and love, they find the strength to keep going day after day. These are moments where virtue shines, turning hardship into a chance to live with integrity and purpose. So, what about you? Think about the challenges you're facing right now. What virtue could you lean into to help you navigate them? Maybe it's courage to take the next step, wisdom to see the bigger picture, or even kindness to extend to yourself and others. The Stoics believed that every obstacle is an invitation to practice virtue. And by doing so, you don't just overcome the obstacle, you become stronger, more resilient, and more fully yourself. Stoics don't measure success by outcomes but by their own efforts. This might sound counterintuitive in a world that often judges us by results, whether it's winning a game, hitting a sales target, or achieving a personal goal. But the Stoic approach flips this mindset on its head, teaching us that true fulfillment comes from the quality of our effort, not the end result. By focusing on what we can control, our actions, intentions, and persistence, we free ourselves from the anxiety of unpredictable outcomes. Detachment, in this sense, isn't about apathy or giving up. It's about letting go of the need to control what's beyond our power and finding peace in the process itself. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, put it simply, "Do your best and let go of the rest." These words remind us that our best effort is always within our control, but the outcome often isn't. Think of it like a basketball player practicing free throws. They can train relentlessly, perfect their technique, and put in the hours, but once the ball leaves their hands, the result is out of their control. Whether it swishes through the net or bounces off the rim, the player's worth isn't defined by the scoreboard, but by the dedication they showed in preparing for that moment. This mindset doesn't just apply to sports, it's equally powerful in business, relationships, or personal growth. Imagine a startup founder pouring their heart into a project. Even if the venture fails, the lessons learned, the skills developed, and the resilience built are invaluable. The outcome doesn't erase the effort, it reframes it as a stepping stone rather than a final destination. So, how can we apply this in our own lives? Take a moment to think about a recent failure or setback. Instead of dwelling on the disappointment, ask yourself, what did I learn from this experience? How did I grow? What can I take forward? By shifting your focus from the outcome to the effort, you reclaim your power and find meaning in the journey. This is the essence of Stoic detachment, a practice that doesn't just reduce anxiety, but also cultivates a deeper sense of purpose and resilience. Imagine looking down at Earth from space. How small do your problems seem? This is the essence of the Stoic exercise known as the view from above. It's a mental shift, a way of zooming out to see your life from a cosmic perspective. The Stoics believed that by doing this, we could reduce the weight of our daily struggles. When you step back and see the bigger picture, the things that feel overwhelming in the moment often shrink in significance. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, once reflected on this idea, saying, "Think of the vastness of time and space and how small a part of it you are." It's a reminder that our troubles, no matter how intense, are just tiny ripples in the grand scheme of existence. So how can you put this into practice? Next time you're feeling overwhelmed, take a moment to close your eyes and imagine yourself floating above the earth. Picture the vastness of the planet, the countless lives unfolding simultaneously, and the infinite stretch of time. Notice how small your worries appear in this context. This exercise isn't about dismissing your feelings, it's about gaining clarity. When you see your problems from this elevated perspective, you'll often find they're not as insurmountable as they seem. Try this the next time stress creeps in. Whether it's a tough day at work, a disagreement with a loved one, or a moment of self-doubt, pause and take that mental step back. Ask yourself, how much will this matter in a week, a year, or even a decade? You might be surprised by how much lighter you feel. This practice isn't just about escaping your problems, it's about reframing them so you can approach life with a calmer, more grounded mindset. What if imagining the worst could make you fearless? This is the essence of Premeditatio Malorum, or the premeditation of evils, a powerful Stoic practice that flips the script on fear. At first glance, it might seem counterintuitive. Why would anyone want to dwell on potential disasters? But the Stoics believed that by anticipating challenges, we can strip them of their power to paralyze us. It's not about pessimism, it's about preparation. As Seneca once wrote, what is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster. By mentally rehearsing the worst-case scenarios, we train ourselves to face them with clarity and courage rather than being blindsided by fear. Think of it like a fire drill. When you know exactly what to do in an emergency, you're less likely to panic. The same principle applies here. By visualizing potential setbacks, we create a mental roadmap for how to respond. This practice isn't just theoretical, it's used by athletes, CEOs, and even military leaders. For example, an Olympic swimmer might visualize everything going wrong, their goggles fogging up, their muscles tightening, their competitors pulling ahead. But they also visualize how they'll adapt, push through, and stay focused. This mental rehearsal doesn't just prepare them for the race, it builds resilience for the unexpected. So, how can you apply this in your own life? Start by identifying a challenge you've been avoiding or fearing. Maybe it's a difficult conversation, a work deadline, or even a personal goal you've been putting off. Now take a moment to imagine the worst-case scenario. What could go wrong? How would you handle it? Visualize yourself staying calm, making thoughtful decisions, and finding a way forward. This isn't about dwelling on negativity, it's about empowering yourself to face uncertainty with confidence. What's one challenge you can mentally prepare for today? Even in the darkest times, there's always something to be grateful for. This simple truth is at the heart of Stoic philosophy, and it's one of the most powerful tools we have for navigating life's challenges. Gratitude isn't just about feeling good. It's a way of shifting our focus from what's wrong to what's right, helping us see the value in what we already have, even when everything seems to be falling apart. The Stoics understood that gratitude is more than a fleeting emotion. It's a practice, a deliberate choice to reframe our perspective. When we feel overwhelmed by setbacks or uncertainty, gratitude allows us to step back and recognize the good that still exists in our lives. It doesn't erase the difficulties, but it gives us the strength to face them with a clearer mind and a steadier heart. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." These words remind us that even the simplest aspects of life, things we often take for granted, are worth appreciating. So how can we bring this Stoic mindset into our daily lives? One practical way is to start a gratitude practice. It doesn't have to be complicated. Each day, take a moment to list 3 things you're thankful for. They can be big or small: a kind word from a friend, the warmth of the sun on your face, or even the fact that you made it through a tough day. The act of writing them down helps us pause and reflect, training our minds to notice the good even when it's overshadowed by the bad. Over time, this habit can rewire how we see the world, making us more resilient and grounded in the face of adversity. Here's a challenge for you. Before this video ends, take a moment to write down one thing you're grateful for today. It doesn't matter how small or insignificant it might seem. The point is to start noticing the light even in the shadows, because when we cultivate gratitude, we're not just appreciating what we have, we're building a foundation of strength that helps us handle whatever comes our way. When everything goes wrong, our first instinct is often to react impulsively, whether it's snapping at a loved one, making a hasty decision, or spiraling into frustration. But here's the thing, those initial reactions rarely lead to the outcomes we truly want. This is where the Stoic pause comes in. It's the conscious decision to take a breath, step back, and respond rather than react. Stoicism teaches us that between what happens to us and how we respond lies a critical moment of choice. And in that moment, we have the power to shape our experience. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "No one is free who is not master of themselves." In other words, true freedom comes from self-control, from not letting our emotions dictate our actions. The Stoic pause is the tool that helps us reclaim that control. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about creating space to think clearly, to assess the situation, and to act from a place of reason rather than raw emotion. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. Your immediate reaction might be anger, maybe even the urge to honk or yell. But what if instead you took a moment to pause? What if you reminded yourself that the other driver's actions are outside your control, but your response is entirely within your power? That pause could mean the difference between escalating the situation and letting it go, saving yourself unnecessary stress. This principle applies to so many areas of life. Think about a time when someone said something that upset you. Instead of firing back with a sharp retort, what if you paused and asked yourself, is this worth my energy? Will reacting this way serve me or the situation? Often, that moment of reflection can prevent misunderstandings, preserve relationships, and even help you grow stronger in the face of adversity. So here's a challenge for you. The next time you feel triggered, whether it's by a frustrating email, a difficult conversation, or even a personal setback, practice the Stoic pause. Take a deep breath, remind yourself that you have the power to choose your response, and then act from a place of clarity and intention. It's not easy, but like any skill, it gets stronger with practice. And over time, you'll find that this simple pause can transform how you handle life's challenges. What if you knew this pain wouldn't last forever? What if you could see it as just a passing storm, dark and turbulent now, but destined to clear? This is the heart of the Stoic concept of impermanence, the understanding that everything, even the hardest moments of life, is temporary. The Stoics believed that much of our suffering comes from clinging to things as if they'll never change, as if this moment, this struggle, this feeling will define us forever. But the truth is, nothing lasts, not the good, not the bad, not even us. And while that might sound bleak at first, it's actually one of the most freeing ideas you can embrace. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, put it this way: you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. At first glance, it might seem like a stark reminder of mortality, but look closer. He's not just talking about death, he's talking about the fleeting nature of life itself. Every moment is a gift, and every hardship is just a blip in the grand scheme of things. When we truly internalize this, it becomes easier to let go of what we can't control and focus on what we can. Think about the changing seasons. Winter feels endless when you're in the middle of it, shivering through the cold and darkness. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the days grow longer, the snow melts, and life begins to bloom again. The Stoics would say that our struggles are like those seasons. They feel overwhelming in the moment, but they're part of a cycle, one that will inevitably shift. The key is to remember that spring always comes, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. So here's a question to reflect on. Can you think of a hardship from your past that once felt insurmountable but now barely registers? Maybe it was a breakup, a job loss, or a time when you felt completely lost. At the time, it might have felt like the world was ending, but looking back, you can probably see how that experience shaped you, taught you something, or even led you to where you are now. That's the power of impermanence. It doesn't just lessen the weight of suffering. It helps us see how even the darkest moments can be transformative. When we embrace this truth, we stop resisting the natural flow of life. We stop trying to freeze time or hold onto what's slipping away. Instead, we learn to move with it, to find peace in the knowledge that nothing, not our struggles, not our victories, not even our lives, is meant to last forever. And in that acceptance, we find a deeper kind of freedom. Stoics believe that unfulfilled desires are the root of much pain. It's a powerful idea, isn't it? Think about it. How often do we feel frustrated, anxious, or even miserable because we want something we don't have? Whether it's a bigger house, a more prestigious job, or even just more likes on a social media post, our desires can trap us in a cycle of dissatisfaction. The Stoics, however, offer a way out of this cycle. They teach us that true peace comes not from getting everything we want, but from aligning our desires with what is within our control. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it bluntly when he said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." In other words, the problem isn't the world failing to give us what we desire, it's our desire itself that creates the problem. When we constantly chase after things that are outside our control, we set ourselves up for disappointment. But when we focus on what we can influence, our thoughts, our actions, our attitudes, we find a sense of freedom and contentment that no external possession can provide. Let's take a modern example: consumerism. How many of us have felt the pull to buy the latest gadget or trendy item, only to realize that the thrill fades almost as quickly as the credit card payment comes due? Or think about social media envy, scrolling through endless posts of seemingly perfect lives, only to feel like we're falling short in comparison. These desires, these comparisons, they don't serve us. Instead, they distract us from what truly matters, cultivating inner peace and living in alignment with our values. So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to reflect on one desire you've been holding onto. Maybe it's a material possession, a career milestone, or even a relationship dynamic you wish were different. Ask yourself, is this desire within my control? If not, what would it feel like to let it go? This doesn't mean giving up on your goals or dreams. It means shifting your focus to what you can control and finding contentment in the present moment. By practicing the discipline of desire, you're not just avoiding unnecessary suffering, you're reclaiming your power to live a life of purpose and peace. What if letting go was the key to finding peace? This is a question the Stoics asked themselves centuries ago, and it's one that still resonates deeply today. At the heart of Stoicism lies the practice of releasing attachments, whether to outcomes, people, or possessions. It's not about indifference or apathy, but rather about understanding that much of our suffering comes from clinging to things we can't control. By learning to detach, we free ourselves from the emotional turmoil that often accompanies life's ups and downs. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest minds, put it this way: "You suffer more in imagination than in reality." When we attach ourselves too tightly to specific outcomes or things, we create mental prisons for ourselves. We worry, we fear, and we lose sight of what truly matters. But when we practice non-attachment, we gain a sense of freedom. We begin to see that our happiness doesn't depend on external circumstances or possessions, it comes from within. Take, for example, the story of a woman who lost her job unexpectedly. At first, she felt devastated, tied to the identity and security her career provided. But over time, she began to embrace the Stoic practice of letting go. She realized that her worth wasn't defined by her job title or salary. By releasing her attachment to that specific outcome, she found peace and even discovered new opportunities she hadn't considered before. So, what about you? What's one thing you're holding onto too tightly? It could be a relationship, a goal, or even a material possession. Take a moment to reflect on how that attachment might be weighing you down. Could letting go, even just a little, bring you closer to peace and clarity? The Stoics remind us that true freedom comes not from controlling everything around us, but from mastering our own minds and emotions. And sometimes that starts with simply loosening our grip. Sometimes the best response to chaos is silence. In a world that often feels loud, overwhelming, and relentless, silence can be a refuge, a way to step back, gather your thoughts, and regain control. The Stoics understood this deeply. They saw silence not as a sign of weakness or passivity, but as a powerful tool for cultivating clarity and self-mastery. When everything around us is spiraling out of control, silence allows us to pause, breathe, and respond rather than react. It's in these quiet moments that we can hear our own thoughts, untangle our emotions, and make decisions rooted in reason rather than impulse. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most renowned Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control." This idea is profound in its simplicity. Silence isn't just about not speaking, it's about creating space to detach from the noise, both external and internal. It's about resisting the urge to immediately judge, criticize, or lash out. By choosing silence, we reclaim our power to observe, reflect, and act with intention. Think about a moment when you felt overwhelmed, maybe during an argument, a stressful day at work, or even in the middle of a crowded, noisy room. What if, instead of adding to the chaos with more words or frantic energy, you simply paused? What if you allowed yourself a moment of silence to gather your thoughts? This small act can be transformative. It's not about avoiding the situation, but about giving yourself the clarity to navigate it with wisdom. Silence becomes a shield, protecting you from the emotional turbulence that often clouds judgment. Here's a simple practice you can try. The next time you feel stress building, find a quiet space, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Sit still, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. Let the chaos around you fade into the background. In this stillness, you might find answers to questions that seemed impossible to solve, or you might simply rediscover a sense of calm. The Stoics believed that silence was a way to reconnect with your inner self, to align with your values, and to emerge stronger, no matter what's happening around you. So today, consider taking just 5 minutes to sit in silence. Notice how it feels to step away from the noise, even briefly. What thoughts arise, what emotions settle. In those quiet moments, you might just find the clarity and strength you've been searching for. Who do you turn to when everything goes wrong? For the Stoics, the answer lies in the strength of virtuous friendships and the support of a thoughtful community. They believed that while we can't control external events, we can choose who we surround ourselves with, and those choices can make all the difference in how we navigate life's storms. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." This isn't just about finding people who agree with you or make you feel good in the moment. It's about seeking out relationships that challenge you to grow, that inspire you to live with integrity, and that offer genuine support when times get tough. These are the kinds of connections the Stoics valued: relationships built on mutual respect, shared values, and a commitment to living virtuously. Think about a time when a friend or a community stepped up for you during a difficult moment. Maybe it was a kind word, a helping hand, or simply their presence that reminded you that you weren't alone. The Stoics understood that these bonds aren't just nice to have, they're essential. When everything feels like it's falling apart, having someone who understands, who listens, and who encourages you to stay grounded can be a lifeline. Here's a practical example. Imagine a person facing a sudden loss, perhaps the death of a loved one or the collapse of a career. In that moment, it's easy to feel isolated, as if the weight of the world is on your shoulders alone. But what if, instead of retreating, they leaned into their community? What if they allowed trusted friends to share their grief, to offer perspective, and to remind them that even in the darkest moments, there's still light to be found? This is the power of Stoic relationships. They don't erase the pain, but they help us carry it with grace. So, here's a question for you. Who in your life embodies those Stoic virtues? Who challenges you to be better, who supports you without judgment, and who reminds you of your strength when you need it most? Today, take a moment to reach out to that person. A simple message, a phone call, or even a shared moment of gratitude can strengthen that bond and remind you that you're never truly alone in this journey. The Stoics teach us that life's challenges are inevitable, but how we face them is up to us. And sometimes the most powerful tool we have isn't something within us, it's the people around us who help us rise to the occasion. Stoics believe that self-reflection is the path to wisdom. It's through looking inward, examining our thoughts and actions, that we gain the clarity needed to navigate life's challenges. Journaling as a practice is one of the most powerful tools the Stoics used to cultivate this habit of introspection. By putting pen to paper, they could untangle their emotions, question their reactions, and ultimately grow stronger in the face of adversity. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, often turned to his own journal. In his personal writings, later known as Meditations, he writes, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if thou wilt ever dig." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that the answers we seek often lie within ourselves. Journaling became his way of digging into that inner well of wisdom, a practice that anyone can adopt. But how does journaling actually help? When we write about our experiences, especially the difficult ones, we create space between ourselves and our emotions. It's like stepping back from a painting to see the whole picture rather than being caught up in a single brushstroke. Writing allows us to process our feelings, question our assumptions, and identify patterns in our behavior. Over time, this practice helps us respond to challenges with greater calm and intention rather than reacting impulsively. Here's a simple way to start. Each evening, take a few minutes to reflect on your day. Ask yourself, what did I learn today? This prompt isn't just about identifying knowledge or skills, it's about uncovering the lessons hidden in your experiences. Maybe you learned something about your own resilience, or perhaps you discovered a way to handle a situation better next time. By focusing on growth, even in small ways, you begin to see challenges not as setbacks, but as opportunities for self-improvement. The beauty of journaling is that it doesn't require anything fancy, just a notebook, a pen, and a willingness to be honest with yourself. It's a quiet moment in your day where you can slow down, reflect, and reconnect with your values. And over time, this practice can transform how you approach life's ups and downs. So why not give it a try? Start small, even with just a few sentences each day, and see how it shapes your perspective. After all, as the Stoics remind us, the journey to wisdom begins with a single step, or in this case, a single word on the page. What if patience was the key to overcoming adversity? It might sound simple, but for the Stoics, patience wasn't just waiting. It was an active, deliberate practice rooted in acceptance. When life throws us into chaos or delays our progress, it's easy to feel frustrated or even powerless. But Stoicism teaches us to see patience as a virtue, a way to align ourselves with the natural flow of life rather than resisting it. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "No great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig." If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer you that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. This isn't just about figs, it's about understanding that everything worthwhile takes time, and that includes our ability to endure and grow through life's challenges. Think of patience like the growth of a tree. A tree doesn't rush to grow taller or bear fruit overnight. It stands firm, weathering storms and droughts, slowly but surely reaching toward the sky. In the same way, cultivating patience allows us to stand steady in the face of adversity, trusting that growth and resolution will come in their own time. The Stoics believed that by accepting what we cannot control, whether it's a delay, a setback, or even a failure, we free ourselves from the frustration of fighting against the inevitable. Instead of railing against the storm, we learn to bend with the wind. So how can you apply this kind of patience in your own life? Start by identifying one area where you feel impatient. Maybe it's a goal you're rushing toward, a relationship you're trying to fix, or a problem you're eager to solve. Ask yourself, What would it look like to approach this situation with the calm, deliberate mindset of a Stoic? Could you focus less on the outcome and more on the process, trusting that even the smallest steps forward are part of a larger, meaningful journey? Patience isn't about passivity, it's about perspective. It's about recognizing that some things are simply beyond our control, and that's okay. What matters is how we choose to respond, how we choose to grow, and how we choose to endure. Stoics believe that humility is the antidote to arrogance and despair. It's not about diminishing your worth or shrinking yourself, it's about grounding yourself in reality. Humility, for the Stoics, is a tool that helps us recognize our limitations without surrendering to them. It's the quiet strength that allows us to face challenges head-on, knowing we don't have to have all the answers or control every outcome. Seneca once warned, "Pride is the greatest burden a person can carry." When we let pride take over, we set ourselves up for disappointment. We become so focused on maintaining an image of perfection that we lose sight of what truly matters. Humility, on the other hand, frees us from this burden. It allows us to admit when we're wrong, to ask for help when we need it, and to learn from others without feeling threatened. Take the story of Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most powerful leaders. Despite ruling the Roman Empire, he consistently reminded himself of his own humanity. In his personal writings, he reflected on the importance of remaining humble, even in the face of immense power. He knew that arrogance could blind him to the needs of his people and the realities of his situation. By practicing humility, he found the clarity and strength to lead with wisdom and compassion. Think about a time in your own life when humility helped you. Maybe it was admitting a mistake at work, apologizing in a relationship, or simply accepting that you couldn't do everything on your own. Those moments of humility likely brought you closer to others or helped you grow in ways that pride never could. The Stoics remind us that humility isn't a weakness, it's a source of resilience. When we embrace it, we open ourselves to deeper connections, greater learning, and a more grounded sense of self. So the next time life throws a challenge your way, consider how humility might guide you. Instead of resisting reality, what if you accepted it with grace? Instead of clinging to pride, what if you let it go and embrace the freedom of being human? The Stoics show us that humility isn't just a virtue. It's a practical tool for navigating life's ups and downs with strength and dignity. What if nature held the key to inner peace? For the Stoics, the natural world was more than just a backdrop to life. It was a teacher, a mirror, and a sanctuary. When everything feels overwhelming, they turn to nature as a source of wisdom and calm, a reminder of the bigger picture. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Look at the stars as if you were with them, and consider the constant changes of the elements into one another." Such imaginings wash away the dirt of life on Earth. In other words, nature shows us the rhythms of life, the cycles of growth, decay, and renewal, and helps us grasp our place within it. So, how can we apply this today? Start small. Take a walk in the park, sit under a tree, or simply watch the clouds drift by. These moments of connection with the natural world can ground us, reminding us that we're part of something vast and enduring. The Stoics believed that by aligning ourselves with nature, we could find a sense of harmony even in chaos. It's not about escaping life's challenges, but about finding perspective and strength in the stillness of the outdoors. Here's an invitation. Carve out just 10 minutes today to step outside. Feel the sun on your skin, listen to the rustle of leaves, or watch the way water flows. Let nature's quiet wisdom remind you that storms pass, seasons change, and life moves forward. In those moments, you might just find the clarity and peace the Stoics cherished. Stoics believe that simplicity is the path to freedom. This isn't just about owning fewer possessions or clearing out a messy closet. It's about creating space in your mind and life for what truly matters. When you strip away the unnecessary, you're left with clarity, focus, and a sense of calm. The Stoics understood that clutter, whether physical or mental, distracts us from our purpose and adds unnecessary stress. By embracing simplicity, we can reclaim control over our attention and energy. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This idea is at the heart of Stoic simplicity. It's not about deprivation, it's about recognizing what's essential and letting go of what isn't. Think about it. How much of what you own or worry about actually serves your growth or happiness? Often, we accumulate things and commitments out of habit or fear of missing out, only to find they weigh us down. The Stoics challenge us to question these habits and prioritize what aligns with our values. Take the story of a man named Marcus who felt overwhelmed by the chaos of his life. His home was filled with items he never used, his schedule was packed with obligations he didn't enjoy, and his mind was cluttered with worries about things he couldn't control. One day, inspired by Stoic principles, he decided to simplify. He decluttered his home, kept only what he truly needed, and started saying no to commitments that drained him. Over time, he noticed a profound shift, less stress, more focus, and a deeper appreciation for the things that truly mattered. Marcus didn't just create physical space, he created mental and emotional freedom. This week, consider taking a small step toward simplicity. Choose one area of your life to declutter, whether it's your workspace, your schedule, or even your thoughts. Ask yourself, does this serve me? Does it align with my values? By letting go of what no longer serves you, you'll find more room for peace, purpose, and the things that truly matter. Simplicity isn't about perfection, it's about progress, and sometimes the smallest changes can lead to the most profound transformations. What if accepting reality was the first step to changing it? At first glance, this might seem counterintuitive. How can accepting something help you change it? But the Stoics understood something profound. Resistance to what is only creates more suffering. When we fight against reality, we waste energy on what we cannot control, leaving less for what we can. Acceptance, in the Stoic sense, isn't about giving up or resigning ourselves to fate. It's about seeing the world clearly without the distortion of wishful thinking or denial. It's about saying, this is where I am now, what can I do from here? Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Think about that for a moment. How much of our pain comes not from the events themselves, but from our resistance to them? When we refuse to accept what's happening, whether it's a job loss, a relationship ending, or even a minor inconvenience, we create an internal tug of war. We're pulling against something that's already happened, something that cannot be undone. And in that struggle, we exhaust ourselves, leaving little room for growth or action. Let's take a modern example: losing a job. It's a situation many of us fear, and for good reason. It can feel like a blow to our identity, our security, even our sense of purpose. But what happens if, instead of spiraling into anger or despair, we pause and accept the reality of the situation? I've lost my job, this is where I am. That acceptance doesn't mean you're happy about it, far from it, but it frees you from the mental chaos of denial or resistance. It allows you to see the situation with clarity, to assess your options, and to take the next step, whether that's updating your resume, networking, or exploring a new career path. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity, it means starting from a place of truth. So here's a question for you: what's one thing in your life right now that you need to accept? It could be something big, like a career setback, or something small, like a disagreement with a friend. Whatever it is, take a moment to acknowledge it fully, without judgment or resistance. Notice how it feels to stop fighting against it, even for just a moment. because once you accept reality as it is, you open the door to working with it, and that's where real change begins. Stoics believe that courage is not the absence of fear but action despite it. At its core, courage is one of the four cardinal virtues in Stoicism, standing alongside wisdom, justice, and temperance. It's about moving forward even when the path ahead feels uncertain or daunting. Think of courage not as a lack of fear, but as the willingness to act in alignment with what's right, even when fear tries to hold you back. This is how Stoics approach life's challenges, not by waiting for fear to disappear, but by choosing to act in spite of it. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's most famous practitioners, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. This is a reminder that courage begins within. It's not about controlling the external world, which is often unpredictable, but about mastering your internal response to it. When faced with fear, the Stoic doesn't seek to eliminate it entirely. Instead, they focus on what they can control, their own actions, choices, and mindset. This shift in perspective transforms fear from an obstacle into an opportunity for growth. Consider the story of a young entrepreneur who risked everything to start a business during an economic downturn. The odds were stacked against them and the fear of failure was overwhelming. But instead of letting that fear paralyze them, they chose to take one small step every day, networking, learning, and refining their ideas. Over time, those small acts of courage compounded, leading to a thriving business that not only survived but thrived. This is the essence of Stoic courage, taking action, however small, even when the outcome is uncertain. So, what's one small, courageous step you can take today? It doesn't have to be life-changing or dramatic. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting, reaching out to someone you've been hesitant to connect with, or simply facing a task you've been avoiding. Courage isn't about grand gestures, it's about the daily choices we make to move forward, even when it's uncomfortable. As the Stoics teach, each act of bravery, no matter how small, strengthens our character and prepares us for whatever comes next. What if wisdom was the key to handling chaos? For the Stoics, wisdom wasn't just about knowing facts or having clever answers. It was about understanding life deeply enough to make choices that align with what truly matters. When everything seems to be falling apart, wisdom becomes the compass that guides us through the storm. It's not about having all the answers, but knowing how to respond thoughtfully, even when the path ahead is unclear. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." This idea is at the heart of Stoic wisdom. It's a reminder that life is a continuous journey of growth, and every challenge is an opportunity to learn something new. When we approach difficulties with this mindset, we stop seeing them as setbacks and start viewing them as lessons. Wisdom, then, becomes the tool that helps us transform obstacles into stepping stones. So, how do we cultivate this kind of wisdom? One way is through reading. The Stoics were avid readers, always seeking to expand their understanding of the world and themselves. Books, especially those that challenge your thinking, can offer new perspectives and insights that help you navigate life's complexities. Another powerful way is by seeking out mentors or people who have walked paths you admire. Learning from others' experiences can save you time and heartache, giving you a clearer sense of direction when you're feeling lost. Take a moment to reflect. What's one lesson you've learned recently? Maybe it's something small, like how to better manage your time, or something profound, like realizing the importance of letting go of what you can't control. Every lesson, no matter how big or small, adds to your reservoir of wisdom, and that reservoir becomes your greatest resource when life throws its hardest challenges your way. Stoics believe that equanimity is the mark of a wise mind. This idea sits at the heart of their philosophy, a steady, unshakable calmness even when life throws its worst at us. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. Instead, it's about cultivating a deep sense of balance so we can face challenges without losing ourselves in the chaos. Think of it as standing in the eye of a storm where everything around you is swirling, but you remain centered and clear. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it this way: "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This simple yet profound statement reminds us that while we can't control external events, we have complete control over our inner world. Equanimity is that inner control, the ability to respond rather than react, to stay grounded even when the ground beneath us feels unstable. Let's make this tangible with a real-world example. Imagine a firefighter entering a burning building. The scene is chaotic, smoke fills the air, alarms blare, and the heat is overwhelming. Yet the firefighter moves with precision and calm. They don't panic or let fear take over. Instead, they focus on what needs to be done step by step. This is equanimity in action. It's not the absence of danger, but the presence of clarity and composure in the face of it. Here's something you can try the next time you feel overwhelmed. When stress or frustration starts to build, pause for a moment. Take a deep breath in, hold it for a few seconds, and then exhale slowly. Repeat this a few times. This simple act of deep breathing can help reset your nervous system, bringing you back to a place of calm. It's a small but powerful way to practice equanimity in your daily life. By embracing this Stoic principle, we learn to navigate life's ups and downs with a steadier hand. It's not about avoiding challenges, but about meeting them with a mind that's clear, focused, and unshaken. Equanimity, then, becomes not just a tool for survival, but a path to thriving, no matter what life throws our way. What if your pain had a purpose? What if the struggles you're facing right now weren't just random obstacles, but opportunities to grow, to learn, and to contribute something meaningful to the world? This is the heart of the Stoic approach to suffering. The Stoics believed that even in the midst of hardship, we can find meaning if we choose to look for it. Take Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, who once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Think about that for a moment. The very thing that seems to block your path, the challenge that feels overwhelming, can be the very thing that shapes you into who you're meant to be. For Marcus, this wasn't just a lofty idea, it was a way of life. He faced wars, political turmoil, and personal loss, yet he used each struggle as a chance to deepen his understanding of himself and the world around him. But how does this work in practice? Let's look at an example. Imagine someone who loses their job unexpectedly. At first, it feels like a devastating blow, a loss of security, identity, and stability. But instead of letting despair take over, they ask themselves, what can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to help others? Over time, they might start a new career, one that aligns more closely with their values. Or perhaps they create a support group for others going through similar challenges, turning their pain into a source of connection and empowerment. This is the power of purpose. It doesn't erase the pain, but it transforms it. It gives us a reason to keep moving forward, even when the path feels uncertain. So here's a question to reflect on. What if your current challenges are preparing you for something greater? What if they're not just random events, but stepping stones toward a deeper sense of meaning? Take a moment to consider how your struggles might be shaping you, and how you can use them to serve a purpose beyond yourself. Because when we see our pain through the lens of purpose, everything changes. It's no longer just something to endure, it becomes a catalyst for growth, a chance to contribute, and a way to live with greater intention. And isn't that what Stoicism is all about? Not avoiding hardship, but finding the strength and wisdom to rise above it. Stoics believe that forgiveness is a gift to yourself. It's not about excusing someone else's actions or forgetting what happened. It's about releasing the weight of resentment that only you carry. For the Stoics, forgiveness is deeply tied to the idea of virtue. By letting go of anger and bitterness, you reclaim your inner peace and align yourself with the Stoic values of wisdom, courage, and self-control. Seneca once said, "To be wronged is nothing unless you continue to remember it." Holding onto a grudge, he argued, is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. It only harms you in the end. Take, for example, the story of a man named Marcus, who struggled for years with anger toward a former business partner who betrayed him. Every time he thought about the betrayal, it consumed his thoughts and drained his energy. But when Marcus began to practice Stoic principles, he realized that his resentment wasn't punishing the other person, it was only holding him back. By choosing to forgive, he didn't suddenly trust the person again or pretend the betrayal didn't happen. Instead, he freed himself from the emotional burden and regained control over his own life. This shift allowed him to focus on what truly mattered: his growth, his relationships, and his peace of mind. Forgiveness, in the Stoic view, isn't about the other person, it's about you. It's a conscious choice to stop letting someone else's actions dictate your emotional state. Think about it. How much of your energy have you spent replaying past hurts or imagining what you'd say to someone who wronged you? What if instead you chose to let go, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace? So here's a challenge. Is there someone in your life you've been holding onto resentment toward? What would it feel like to forgive them, not for their sake, but for yours? What if laughter was the best medicine for adversity? It might sound surprising, especially when we think of Stoicism as a philosophy rooted in discipline and self-control. But here's the thing: Stoics understood that humor isn't a distraction from life's challenges. Instead, it's a tool to help us face them with clarity and resilience. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic thinkers, once wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, because an artful life requires being prepared to meet and withstand sudden and unexpected attacks." But he also knew that a little levity could make those attacks easier to bear. Humor for the Stoics wasn't about ignoring reality or making light of pain. It was about finding a way to step back, see the bigger picture, and remind ourselves that even in the hardest moments, life has its absurdities. Think about someone facing a tough situation. Maybe they've lost their job or are dealing with a personal setback. Instead of spiraling into despair, they crack a joke about the absurdity of it all. That's not denial, it's perspective. Humor allows us to reframe our struggles, to see them as part of the human experience rather than something uniquely devastating. And in doing so, it helps us regain a sense of control. Here's a practical example. Take the story of Viktor Frankl, a psychologist and Holocaust survivor. In his darkest moments in the concentration camps, he noticed that humor became a survival mechanism for many prisoners. Even in the face of unimaginable suffering, they found ways to laugh. It didn't erase their pain, but it gave them a momentary reprieve, a way to reconnect with their humanity and remind themselves that their spirit was still intact. So how can we apply this Stoic approach to humor in our own lives? It starts by allowing ourselves to laugh at the small, everyday frustrations. Missed the bus. Spilled coffee on your shirt. Instead of letting it ruin your day, try to find the humor in it. These moments of levity don't just lighten your mood, they train your mind to see challenges as temporary and manageable. Today, ask yourself, what's one thing that made you laugh even in the midst of a tough day? It could be something small, like a funny meme or a playful conversation. The goal isn't to force laughter, but to notice the moments of lightness that already exist. Because sometimes the most Stoic thing you can do is remind yourself that life, even at its hardest, still has room for joy. Stoics believe that generosity is a path to inner peace. It might seem counterintuitive, especially when life feels overwhelming or resources are scarce, but giving to others, whether it's your time, energy, or even a kind word, can be one of the most powerful ways to regain a sense of balance and purpose. The Stoics understood that focusing solely on our own struggles can trap us in a cycle of negativity. By shifting our attention outward toward helping others, we not only alleviate their burdens but also remind ourselves of our capacity to make a difference, no matter how small. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness." This idea cuts to the heart of Stoic generosity. It's not about the size of the gift or the grandeur of the gesture, it's about the intention behind it. When we give, even in moments when we feel we have little to offer, we tap into a deeper sense of connection and meaning. Generosity, in the Stoic view, isn't just an act, it's a practice that aligns us with our better selves and strengthens our resilience. Take, for example, the story of a man who lost his job during a difficult economic downturn. At first, he felt defeated and isolated, unsure of how to move forward. But instead of retreating into despair, he decided to volunteer at a local food pantry. Over time, he found that helping others gave him a renewed sense of purpose. It didn't solve all his problems, but it reminded him that he still had something valuable to contribute. His generosity, even in the face of his own challenges, became a source of strength and clarity. So, what might this look like in your own life? It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Maybe it's holding the door open for someone, offering a listening ear to a friend, or simply sharing a smile with a stranger. The act itself matters less than the mindset behind it. Today, consider performing one small act of kindness, not because you expect anything in return, but because it reminds you of your ability to create a ripple of positivity, even in tough times. This is the Stoic art of generosity, finding peace not by hoarding what we have, but by sharing it freely. What if remembering death could help you live better? At first, the idea might sound unsettling, but in Stoicism, the concept of Memento Mori, Latin for remember you must die, is not about fear or despair. Instead, it's a powerful tool for cultivating gratitude, urgency, and purpose. The Stoics believed that by keeping the inevitability of death in mind, we can strip away distractions and focus on what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This isn't meant to evoke anxiety, it's a call to action. When we recognize that our time is finite, we're more likely to stop procrastinating, to cherish the present, and to align our actions with our values. Think about it. How often do we delay pursuing our dreams, repairing relationships, or simply appreciating the small joys of life because we assume we have endless tomorrows? The Stoic practice of Memento Mori reminds us that tomorrow isn't guaranteed. It's not about dwelling on death, but using its inevitability as a motivator to live with intention. For example, consider the story of a man who survived a serious car accident. In the aftermath, he described how the experience shifted his perspective. He stopped postponing the things he cared about, mended broken relationships, and began living with a newfound sense of purpose. His near-death experience became a catalyst for transformation, mirroring the Stoic principle that confronting mortality can lead to a richer, more meaningful life. So here's a question to reflect on. If you knew you had just 1 year left to live, how would you spend it? Would you continue chasing fleeting distractions, or would you focus on what truly brings you joy and fulfillment? The Stoics challenge us to live as if every moment could be our last, not out of fear, but out of respect for the preciousness of life. By embracing this mindset, we can stop waiting for the right time and start making the most of the time we have. As we wrap up, let's take a moment to revisit the core Stoic principles we've explored today. At the heart of Stoicism lies the dichotomy of control, the understanding that some things are within our power while others are not. This simple yet profound idea reminds us to focus our energy on what we can influence, like our thoughts, actions, and responses, rather than wasting it on what's beyond our grasp. It's a mindset that shifts us from frustration to empowerment, especially when life feels overwhelming. Then there's Amor Fati, the love of fate. This is the practice of embracing everything that happens to us, not as a burden, but as an opportunity. It's about seeing challenges as stepping stones, not stumbling blocks. When we learn to accept and even love our circumstances, no matter how difficult, we unlock a deeper sense of peace and purpose. It's not about pretending everything is perfect, it's about finding meaning in the imperfect. And finally, resilience through virtue. Stoicism teaches us that true strength comes from living in alignment with our values: courage, wisdom, justice, and self-discipline. These virtues act as our compass, guiding us through storms and helping us stay grounded even when everything seems to be falling apart. They're not just lofty ideals, they're practical tools we can use every day to navigate life's toughest moments. The Stoics believed that adversity is not something to fear, but something to grow from. As Seneca once said, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Every challenge we face is an opportunity to build resilience, to refine our character, and to deepen our understanding of what it means to live well. Life will always throw curveballs, but Stoicism gives us the tools to face them with clarity and courage. So, as you move forward, I'll leave you with this question. How will you apply these Stoic principles the next time everything goes wrong? Will you pause and remind yourself of the dichotomy of control? Will you embrace your circumstances with Amor Fati, or will you lean into your virtues to find strength and clarity? The choice is yours, and remember, you're not alone in this journey. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how Stoicism has helped you or how you plan to use these tools in your own life. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe and join the conversation. Together, we can build a community that thrives even when life gets tough.